hope you all enjoyed Mango's last night, as was alluded this morning. For this next session, I'd love to introduce 3 people that will be joining us on stage regarding best practices in admissions and retention. Each person that will be on this stage is in various stages of using mobile for admissions as well as recruitment, and they'll be sharing their stories with you in terms of their roadmap and how they're looking to best proceed with mobile in terms of admissions and recruitment. I'd like to introduce first Colonel Deborah McDonald from the West Point United States Military Academy, who will be joining us on stage momentarily, as well as David Rose, who is the Vice President of Enrollment and Marketing at Indiana Wesleyan University. And last but not least, who you've heard from before during this conference will be joining us, Matt Wilmore, who is the Program Manager for the mobile application at the University of Notre Dame. And without further ado, I will have them join us on stage, and they will walk you through where they are right now in terms of recruitment and admissions, in terms of mobile. So thank you. Come on up.
Okay, can everyone hear me? My name is Debbie McDonald. I'm the Director of Admissions at West Point, and I'm really pleased to be here. Just to make sure I can actually do this right. Let's see. Okay. So a little bit about me. I'm a 1985 graduate of West Point. I was a student in high school when West Point went co-ed. It opened its doors to women in 1976, and so I saw that's Sharon. Okay, no, this is good. So I saw a movie about West Point, about women at West Point. And so that was the world that I lived in at that time. We didn't have computers, so that was the marketing lure for a lot of women to consider the military academies. So I went to West Point, graduated from there. I've served a career in the military, 32 years now. I thought I'd only serve 5 years in, so the Army kind of hooked me in. I married my West Point classmate, and we've served together all around the world and the country. I've been the Director of Admissions since 2008. I have a Master's in Business Administration from Management Information Systems since that was in Oklahoma City University in 1988. So we didn't even have personal computers then. I think Macs were invented at that time, so my information systems background is kind of dated. I've had 3 assignments at West Point throughout my military career, and currently, while I'm the director, I'm also doing an online learning. It's a blended program with the University of Florida for leadership and higher education. So let me tell you a little bit about our school, West Point. How many of you have ever been to any of the service academies? Okay, a couple of hands. Okay, so West Point is the one that's for the Army. I always hear, is that the one with the aircraft, or is that the one with the ships? Are you in Annapolis? No, we are the oldest military academy. We're about 50 miles north of New York City on the Hudson River, and you can see a picture right there. The buildings right there, that really is our campus. We have 17,000 acres for our military installation, but the actual classroom experience and the living experience is nested right there in the center of campus. We do have, outside of this picture, up the hill, we have a lot of our athletic facilities, and then down the hill, right next to the river, beyond where you can see it, we also have some other athletic facilities. Very little flat ground at the academy, and it doesn't really do well with our digital communications because we are blocked by a lot of the geography around the area. We are an undergraduate institution only. We have 4,400 students. It's fully funded tuition, room and board, and the students are actually paid to go to the academy. So it's one of the government service academies. Okay, and so here's a history quiz so that you can go out and razzle and dazzle your colleagues and friends when you go back home. Who was the first commander of West Point during the Revolutionary War? Anyone know? He was probably playing pack-a-bell back then. But okay, it was Benedict Arnold. And so Benedict Arnold's treason was giving the fortification designs to the British because he was upset about the way he was being treated, and not with he was a war hero, a Revolutionary War hero, and he was upset with what was going on. So he gave the fortification designs to the British because if they could actually make it up the Hudson River, that's why West Point was so strategic, because they would stop the British from being able to split the revolutionary forces in two. So we are the oldest continuously garrisoned military installation in America. We were established in thought by General George Washington before he became president, and then signed into law by Thomas Jefferson. We enter this year, the goal is just a little over 1,200 entering freshmen, 15 of whom will be international students, and then we have an 81% graduation rate after 4 years. We don't have a 5-year plan or a 6-year plan. It's 4 years, come in, get out, and go do great things in the Army. Have to do some of the bragging about what we do well. Our national rankings, U.S. News and World Report has ranked us very high. Forbes magazine, in their first rankings that came out in 2009, they listed West Point as #1. And the cover, it's great. I didn't put it on here, but the cover is great. It shows the West Point cadets marching into graduation. It says, "Why West Point beats Harvard." And it's wonderful. I mean, we used that marketing for quite a while, and we saw our applications surge after that. Before, we had about an 80% yield rate each year, and then after that article, it surged up to 87%, and it's leveled off to about 85% for our applicants that we offer admission to, actually who accept the admission. And so West Point has remained #1 public college in the nation, listed by Forbes, in every year since they came out with that. And so we hold that. We hold that dear because that's pretty cool to have that. Although it's interesting, we're also the #2 public liberal arts college and the best undergrad engineering program, which is sort of, you try to figure out how that works. Nowhere on this slide do you see we're the best digital enterprise, that we are the best online capability. Nowhere. We're good in a lot of things, but we're not good in that transformation. And this is one of the reasons what brought me down to this conference, is to see how we at West Point can do better in the mobile and the digital architecture. So let me also talk about some of our cadets, because this really, listening to all of the presentations this week, what I've taken away from this is that we must have our students buy into this, and it has to be the students' needs that we develop whatever mobile programs that we have. And I'm not going to go through all of these cadets here, but on the upper left side, that's Cadet Christian Natiel. He's our first African-American Rhodes Scholarship winner. Our first African-American graduate graduated right after the Civil War. So we've had a number of thousands of African-Americans come through West Point. He's the first African-American Rhodes Scholar winner. Down right below him, Mark McGinnis. He's a Schwartzman Scholar winner. He came to West Point via our preparatory school program because of his academic background, his socioeconomic status. All the markers were indicating to us that he would be challenged within the academic program. And he rose to near the top of his class, and then one of our postgraduate scholarships. And then my two favorite on this slide are David Farr and Alexandria Bell. They're down the two on the lower left. David Farr also went to our preparatory school program. He's an NCAA wrestler. He's won national titles. He has won a Rotary Global grant. And then his girlfriend, Alexandria Bell, is #1 in West Point class this year. First time that we've had an African-American woman as our #1 graduate. She is right now. We'll wait to see in May how that goes. So we have a lot of great talent as cadets at West Point, and so we need to harness that talent to be able to devise what do they need. And I was talking with some of our participants yesterday. We don't really need a mobile app that has transportation because we're so tightly nested right there in the central area. But we might need a mobile app for scheduling a haircut. because the cadets need the haircuts. And instead of waiting in a long line, they can actually do that. So we could really use some of these applications that would be new and innovative for our cadets. So I give you a little eye chart right here, just our updated admissions for our class of 2021. Some of the takeaways here, we normally see about a 14,000 to 15,000 applicant pool. This year we saw a 10% downturn in applications, and the predominant downturn, the decline, were in Caucasian males. Although we've aggressively marketed for women and minorities, and we've made a heavy push on that, and we've increased those numbers dramatically, I don't have the digital analytics because of the restrictions that the government puts on me to be able to tell my boss, who is the superintendent, a 3-star general at the academy, I can't tell him why we're down 10% in our applications this year, and specifically why we're down in white males. And that's a bad thing. And so one of the things that I'm looking at is, where are our students? Where are our potential students? Are they coming to our website that's not the most user-friendly website, or are they trying to look for us on their mobile devices? So that really is what drew me to this conference, is to look at our digital footprint, to increase that, make our admissions applications scalable to online or mobile platforms, but and also be a impetus for change for our strategy, for our digital architecture in the future. So I will pass this on to our next speaker.
I'm David Rose from Indiana Wesleyan University. I have the opportunity to work in what we call as our national and global campus. We've struggled for many years to actually we call ourselves, and that's our latest iteration. Indiana Wesleyan is a private Christian liberal arts university with its residential campus in Marion, Indiana. I did not start my career in higher education. I didn't come into higher education until 1996. I spent the first part of my career in direct mental health and administrative services. If my wife was standing here right now, I usually introduced her as the person I met on a psychiatric unit. As a traditional student, many of the traditional kids would work as aides at the local community mental health center and go to class during the daytime, and my wife was already a nurse there. And so I spent many years in that before I had started adjuncting and joined higher ed, and really had no idea how those years in mental health would have prepared me so well for a career in higher education. I've had the opportunity in higher education to be in multiple different roles and in multiple different kinds of environment. For-profit, venture capital-backed, private, not-for-profit, vocational, liberal arts. My current role oversees the marketing, the enrollment, and the financial aid services for our national and global campus. The term, when you look at some of the research, they kind of refer to this population as post-traditional students. So Indiana Wesleyan is one of 5 schools that are owned by the Wesleyan Church. We are a Christian denomination. With Indiana Wesleyan, we have about 10,000 students, non-traditional, post-traditional, national and global students from our region, nationally, and pull from out of the U.S. also. And within that, about 80 different degrees, ranging from an associate to doctoral degrees in all disciplines of nursing, education, ministry, business, IT. We have a smaller office stationed in Miami that we refer to as Global Academic Programs. They serve a ministerial and teacher prep in South America and in Haiti, delivering programs in Spanish and in French. That program is very missional for us. Folks in those populations can't afford tuition at a private American university, so we discount it to such a significant rate. They still, have to drop out for a few months, earn their tuition dollar, and come back, and we charge them about $65 a credit hour. Excelsia is a school in Sydney, Australia that we work with about 5 years ago. Traditional school delivering a number of different liberal arts disciplines and now moving into business. Wesley Seminary, about a 500-person seminary in Marion, Indiana. That just happens to be where their building is. Most of their students are distant ed, come in for some intensives, but do most of their classes online. And then our residential campus, that traditional food services, eating, ball game going, dorm living student, about 300 or 3,000 of those living in Marion, again, studying all different disciplines. And looking at our university, it is a house that has multiple different brands. The messaging that you need to provide, what attracts a student to each segment, and who's a part of that decision making is very, very different. Many of the national and global students are partially or full-time employed. They're wanting to come back and finish their bachelor's degree, maybe took some courses out of high school, maybe they want to go off and do their graduate degree. They're sometimes sponsored with some tuition assistance dollars from their employer. So we have to be able to craft a unique message that reaches those different populations. You know, we don't typically have a student show up at one of our regional learning centers with mom and dad and wanting a campus tour. That's not, you know, their decision-making process. So being able to craft a strategy that represents that and also represents the whole of the university has not been an easy journey. Our latest reiteration is the national and global campus. We started this line of academic delivery in 1985, believing that access for these kinds of students was very, very difficult. They were not used to, or their schedule couldn't accommodate that 7 a.m. or 6 a.m. class in the morning, driving to a campus and hunting for a parking spot, standing in line to see their academic advisor and have their schedule signed off, and then going to the bookstore. So really an access and convenience model was created to be able to deliver to them, and we branded it LEAP, Leadership Education for Adult Professionals. The difficulty that we had is that we put so many resources into that over the first 15 to 20 years, that became the brand that was more predominant than the university. When folks would say, "Where did you graduate from?" They said, "I graduated from LEAP." And you can imagine that was a little bit of an issue for the president and the board of trustees that the institution was referred to as LEAP instead of Indiana Wesleyan University. If you look at current literature that is out there, a couple of sources that really talk about this population and the unique needs of what they are, and there's a typo here. It's not customer dynamics, it's education dynamics. Customer dynamics is a Microsoft shop that was an implementation company I used, but the Wesleyan group, Carol Wesleyan, is one of the most prolific researchers and writers on this post-traditional student of how they're different than that traditional 18 to 22 population, and then Staymates is also a very strong source of information. What's unique about the programming for the student population is that we offer it in a non-term-based atmosphere. That literally the term students are starting 51 weeks out of the year. They don't have to wait to launch into their academic program. So there's not a spring semester, summer semester, winter semester. The only week that we're not launching classes is when the entire university is shut down between Christmas and New Year's. And it has a flexible academic governance. So within that larger national and global, there are specific primary academic units who have their own academic governance. So programs that they can bring forward that have been researched, that have been voted upon, or approved by academic affairs before it gets to the full university faculty senate. Marketing research, actually several years ago they decided to put market research into marketing to try and protect the university of coming up with programs that may be some faculty members' pet project that really the demand for it hadn't been fully vetted. So within our world, every academic credential that's brought forward, we have a full-time marketing assistant. We use a tool called Burning Glass that kind of folds job postings from many MSA and IPEDS data together to really look at what's the demand for this position, the training outcome, and who's already providing the training for that based upon the MSA. So it all goes through that process, and then essentially a business performa is created to see what it's going to take to be able to run this program. And is it missional in that we're barely going to break even, or is it something that we expect excess revenue to come out of? We have a very focused and marketing and enrollment strategy. We used to use agencies that would try to craft the message. do our creative for us, our radio spots. We onboarded our own marketing department. So for just the national and global campus, for that 10,000 population, we have a 14-member in-house marketing department that does everything except the final TV buy. That we still outsource to a company, but within probably 12 months we'll have insourced that also. We've been able to develop enough talent that we have the capacity to be able to do that ourselves. And we use all the traditional diverse marketing channels. We do digital, we do TV, we do radio, and some places we'll do outdoor. It varies based upon the credential in the marketplace that we're in. Our focus currently is the space for these students has become so competitive. Our Indianapolis has been our oldest market, and there was so much pent-up demand for something that adults could access without going and having to sit in a classroom on a traditional campus. It was pretty easy in the early years. 2002 was when the University of Phoenix came to our oldest market, Indianapolis. And when I first came back to the university about 5 years ago, I did a tour, 465 loop around Indianapolis, and took a picture of every institution that had presence on this highway loop around the metropolitan area, and there was 47 different entities that provided some kind of adult-friendly programming. So you really have to position yourself to show what are the features and the benefits of your program, and you have to do it at a higher level than in the old traditional enrollment funnel. All enrollment folks talk about the funnel, where you're bringing leads in and you're working them through the process to where they apply, they enroll, and ultimately start class. What is going to separate you from all the competition out there is really the content generation. So when faculty talk about, you need to spend more money in this area, you need to put a billboard up here, you need to be able to advertise in this periodical, my response is, and I need content from you. Things that will draw eyes to the university from folks who are maybe not at this point are looking for a college experience, but you're getting the university's name in front of them by not just talking about what a wonderful institution we are, you're talking about things that are relevant to their world and to their discipline. We have inside and outside, and sometimes I offend the academics, we do refer to them as inside and outside sales staff. We are an educational sales arm. We're not an admission department, we are a recruitment department. And so we have outside folks who are out there developing relationships with transfer entities, community colleges, with directors of nursing, with HR training directors, with union training directors, being able to develop those relationships. And then we've got folks who are exclusively inside. As a person inquires about who we are, they're the ones who will answer that call, answer their questions, develop that relationship, and literally hold their hand through the process until they become an enrolled student. For us, it's two pieces that I think drive our success, is looking at the analytics. We have come a long way in using technology. Mobile applications, not yet, but in the technology that we use of understanding where the student came from, how long it took them to convert, what percentage was their contact rate, how long did it take us to reach them, and how many of them started as an enrolled student in the discipline in that marketplace, and training your staff to be able to work with that. An enrollment representative is more than just an enthusiastic first-year alumni. They've graduated from the college, they love the institution, they want to continue to give back and extend their college experience. There is a very structured training program, and in these last few years we brought on a full-time training director that's all they do, is identify training needs for the teams and for individuals. The other piece that we've gotten to is an integration of our telephony, our CRM, and our student information system. For it to be able to exchange that data, we use Microsoft CRM. We had used Ellucian's version of it, but there was coding in it that just made it so restrictive. We decided several years ago, we'll just go out and buy Microsoft Dynamics off the street, and we'll create our own. We integrated our telephony, which is a cloud-based system with InContact. And so the student information system, Ellucian colleague, the CRM, Microsoft Dynamics, The in-contact platform, which is a cloud-based, so every enrollment representative has their headsets, their calls are being recorded, and there's a dashboard that shows when they're on a call, how long they're off the call, how much time they're spending in a wrap-up. So you have the mutual accountability that shows who's on a call and available or not available to be able to talk to a prospective student. So since all three are tied together, what it creates is when a call comes in from a student, it is identified by its phone number, and for that representative, there's a screen pop that comes up. Their record of where they are in the enrollment process pops up, and they know who's on the line, and when they pick it up, who they're going to be talking to. The other piece that has been so helpful to us is that in this digital age, yes, there's TV, yes, there's radio, there's paid search, but many places use affiliate and directory leads. That's just part of the strategy. Those convert at a much lower rate, they're difficult to reach. So we employed a dialer. We have a system, a part of the contact system center of where it is calling students all day long. It just churns through these numbers. But it's not a robo-dialer in that one call for one rep. There is somebody always listening to the line, so if somebody picks up, they're there to be able to talk to that student. But the volume of calls that it can reach through, this dialer can go through 2,000 people in the morning. Just making those dials is a much better use of resources than having my own staff continue to pound the phones, dialing those 10 digits, trying to be able to reach a student. Let the technology do that. And it has increased our contact rate using this technology by 52% contact rate higher than having human beings pound the digits. Mobile strategy, we really don't. When we were looking at mobile strategy a number of years ago, we were advised, you don't need a mobile app. All you need is a responsive design enterprise site, and that's where we went. It's past that time, and so we need to be able to move into that direction. We discontinued the microsites, and everything right now comes into the enterprise site, and it's responsive design. Where we see ourselves going next is looking at a full life term mobile app for a student that is capturing them, that they're choosing to download before they ever become a student, that integrates with the CRM and shows them where they are in the enrollment process, if transcripts have come in, if letters of reference have come in, that they're able to do that, that it integrates and pushes the data over into the student information system, that a student profile is created, and it also interfaces with the learning management system. We had been using Pearson's Learning Studio, but they've decided to get out of that business, and so we've made the commitment by the end of the year we'll have switched over to D2L, Desire to Learn, Brightspace, and they interface with Modo, and so that's why we're here investigating whether all of these, Ellucian Colleague, Microsoft Dynamics, and Brightspace will all interface with the mobile app in the way that we want, because we want it to have the single sign-on authentication so they can reach academic advising through that. They can have push notifications from the LMS if there's an assignment due, what their grade's at, and really pull in that kind of engagement regardless of what constituency they may be, whether they're pre-enrollment, post-enrollment, alumni in the gauges of completing their application. Thank you.
So we're at a little bit different track than Indiana Wesleyan and West Point. We're more of that traditional school, and we're just a little farther down the road with regards to using admissions in a mobile app. But I wanted to talk a little bit about how we're doing that, some of the ideas we've had, some things we'd like to do but haven't yet, and some things we've found to be successful. So this is, of course, Notre Dame, which is who I'm representing today. I really enjoy stories about West Point and other schools and how they got their start. So I'll give you a little bit of trivia. Somebody actually asked me yesterday, Notre Dame was started by Irish people. And I said, no, it was actually started by Edward Sorin, who is a French priest. And I said, well, why are you the Fighting Irish? I said, I don't know. So I went back and researched. So you can use this at your next party when it gets really dull. You can pull this out. So the third president of Notre Dame was Father William Corby, who was from Detroit, went through the priesthood, became a priest, and was enlisted in the Civil War for the Union Army to be one of the priests for the Irish Brigade, which was a group of about 3,000 Irish infantry that enlisted to fight for the Union Army in the Civil War. And he was one of the ministers, or I guess the priests, or chaplains, I guess, of the Irish Brigade. And at the Battle of Gettysburg, he stood on this big boulder out in the field and gave general absolution to all the troops. And it was probably a good thing because most of them died. It was a very heavy casualty for that group. And so he did that and came back and eventually became the president of Notre Dame later. And most people think that is how the name Fighting Irish came about. So if you go to the Gettysburg, you'll see a statue of Corby there on that boulder. And so I think he was the first non-general to have a statue erected at Gettysburg, and I believe he is the only statue not holding a weapon. And there's a replica of that statue on campus. So if you ever come to Notre Dame, you can see in front of Corby Hall, there is a statue of Father Corby. So that is where Fighting Irish likely comes from. Not fighting because we're drunk, fighting because we're fighting for what's good. So Notre Dame, private Catholic university, founded in 1842, so not quite as old as West Point. Around 12,000 students. I think about a little under a third of those are graduate students. We have 5 major schools. We do, now of course I'm going to forget one here, arts and letters, business, law, science, engineering. We have a school of architecture. And then we have a new Keough School of Global Affairs, which just got started. The first school we've opened in 80 years, I think. So it's a new deal for us. But this is Notre Dame, and we, like I said, are the sort of the traditional school where it's a very highly residential campus. We do a very limited amount of online, but we like to do the 4-year on-the-ground program. So we've had our Kurogo app for almost 3 years. And we worked with the enrollment division to find out how we can extend the usefulness of the app beyond people who are on campus. And we wanted to start attract students before they get to Notre Dame, either as prospective students or as admitted students. We know that students, as I think we saw somebody last night we were out to dinner last night and we saw a kid who couldn't be more than 2 on his iPad. It was also way past his bedtime, but this is where they are. They're, like they said yesterday, they are mobile native. They are born with an iPad in their hand. This is just where they are. And along with that, Notre Dame is fighting, or competing, I should say, with every school in this room to attract and retain those same great students. So we have the same challenges that Wesleyan and West Point and everybody else in this room has to get those students to come to our school. It is so competitive that we're doing everything we can to increase that yield rate and find those best students as early as possible. We start tracking and identifying students that we'd like to recruit as early as 7th grade. We find districts that have very good returns for us, and we go talk to them starting in middle school, and we watch them and see how well they do. It is that serious. So with that, the mobile app is a natural way to start engaging with those students as early as possible. Now this is really intended for people sort of in high school, sort of getting ready to apply. But certainly if you have a younger kid who downloads the app, we want to make them start thinking about being at Notre Dame and being part of the Fighting Irish, and how great would that be? So we worked with the enrollment division to get this set up. So it's one of our very first publisher modules. The enrollment division's been a great partner with us to help get publisher started. It was sort of a struggle at first. Before we had any publisher modules, we couldn't really get any department to believe and trust in us that this would work out. But admissions came on, and now we have the opposite problem as I talked about on Monday, where everybody wants in. But admissions was one of our first in there. We designed this module using content from the admissions website, but we did it as its own entity. I see some schools who will take all their content from their website and shove it into publisher. They'll say, we need to have a one-for-one match with this content. And we took a different approach. We took all their information from the admissions website and we said, all right, here's your information, but imagine that this app is your only window that students can see. How do you build this presence? Don't try to be the mobile, don't try to be the website, just be here with the same information. So it's a very distilled version of the information, but still very effective and allows people to go from learning about it to how do I apply. We're coming from this understanding that as younger and younger students start using devices and have apps, this may be their first interaction with the university, not through a phone call, not through going to the website, not through visiting campus, but downloading the app. So you have to treat that with the same reverence that you would if they were to come and take a tour or to call you for more information. And the functionality in the app is on par with the website. Of course, it doesn't have 100% of the information that the website does, but you can do everything in the app that you could on the website. So we didn't want to say, here's our app, but it only does half the stuff, and then I kick you off to the web. I wanted to get that in that module as well. The first round, as you saw on the front, was just adding information, so it's passively available. Here's the admissions module. Here's some information for you. Sort of a takeaway, right? Here's a handout. That's all it was. We started doing this second round of work as a recruiting aid during yield events. So I'm sure a lot of you have yield events. They're based, as Colonel McDonald said, yield is basically the percentage of students who are admitted that choose to enroll. And West Point's yield rate is absurdly high. It's fantastic. So 85%?
Yeah, but they have to go through a lot to get there.
They have to go through a lot to get there, but generally higher yield will mean that the people who are enrolling at their first choice. It's a little more nuanced than that because financial aid comes into play and some other factors, but generally higher yield is better. Our yield is about 53%, which is in the top 10, top 15 of schools, but I mean, even that, half the people who are admitted to Notre Dame don't go. That's how competitive it is out there, because there's a ton of really, really good schools, and we have to fight for all those same students. So we started using the admissions module to help with that yield piece, to see if we can move that number just a little bit. We hold roughly 9 to 10 events, sometimes more in the spring semester, to increase that yield by inviting groups of people to campus to sort of wine and dine them a little bit, And we do this for specific target audiences, and those audiences vary by year depending on what our goals are. So this year we focused on first generation, merit scholarship finalists, high academic talent, and international students. And in some cases, we actually would do financial aid interviews or scholarship interviews while they came that weekend. So it's usually them and their parents coming anywhere from Indianapolis to New York, California, Florida. Sometimes we'll fly them in, sometimes we just invite them to come up. Depends on the group and what we're trying to do, but we bring them up there to try to increase that yield. And so the app was a nice way to help them out. And so if you look here at this icon, at this image at the bottom, we have these buttons for this week. It was admitted student events and Hesburgh International Scholars. So admitted students would be our first gen, and then our Hesburgh International would be our international students. So we add those to the app, and all that really is a calendar. That's a very low impact, very easy start. So we could just, in that first round when it was passed, we just say, oh, by the way, we have an app, you should download it. No reason why, just, hey, by the way, you should have an app. I appreciate the downloads, but it didn't really do anything for the student. So we promoted the app through these yield events, so they'd have it on there, and we'd use the calendar to give them a reason to use the app while they're at the yield events. The students are on their phones anyway. If they're not in your app, they're going to be in Snapchat and Facebook, so you might as well have something on the phone that they can use. I mean, the alternative is that you just give them a paper form with the calendar, and they lose it in about 4 seconds. So this is a little more effective. And this use meant that is we have booths at these yield events, and when we're there, nearly every single person, parent and child that we talk to, has the app installed, which is fantastic. None of these people go to Notre Dame yet, but they all have the app installed, so that's a good sign. We also have a giant iPhone, I'll show you in a second here, that we stole from Modo. They did this at EDUCAUSE a couple years ago, and we have this as sort of a visual aid that we can help demonstrate the app, and it's just something to remember their visit to Notre Dame by. But it's just a visual aid that we use, that the OIT provides. So there's our giant iPhone. So it's basically a 46-inch iPhone. It's like the iPhone 17, but it'll fold up in your pocket. It's nice. So we just took a touchscreen because of course we had one laying around. And we found a confidence monitor stand like you'd use for this TV. We raised it up and turned it sideways. And then this is just the mobile web version of our app blown up. And then we use a couple Chrome extensions to make it feel like an iPhone. So there's one that does the touch so it scrolls, and there's one where it pops up a keyboard so you can type on it. But previously, we had just had it on our phones. And as big as these iPhone screens get, it's still complicated to have a family gather around you so you can show something that's really pretty small. So by this, we can all walk up to this phone, and I can show you what cool stuff is in the app. And that is something that I don't think they're getting at these other tours. It doesn't mean that everyone here has to have a giant iPhone, but it's something that is a memory. They remember the app, and they remember Notre Dame. And maybe we can increase yield just a little bit with that, just having the app in a device like this. So that's Bethany, my buddy in the project management office, and she's talking about one of the handouts that we give out to the students. But this is something we've built. And then the bezel, it's really easy to find iPhone vector artwork for doing mock-ups. So I just took one of those, we sent it to a printer, and we made it big enough that they could cut out the middle and you could fit it on the phone. So that's our giant iPhone. Yeah. So best practices that I can recommend based on our experience, partnering with enrollment on ways to help them. We of course want the downloads, we want the success in the app, but we need to consider how can we help them and partner with them to make their stuff successful. And the more people that are admitted, the more people use the app, so it works for us. But we want to do it in a way that's familiar to the student. All the students have their phones. Every single student had their phone. So if I can give them something that is on where they are, paper's not going to work. They're not going to do that. If you tell them a website, they're not going to go. But if I give them something in the app, they're at least more likely to go. We try to use a ladder of engagement approach. This is something that was used a lot during the 2008 and 2012 presidential campaigns by Obama's team. And the idea was that you don't go from 0 to apply, or you don't go from 0 to I need $100. You start very small. You just invite them to learn, watch a video, call a counselor, visit us, or we do remote visits. We'll go to LA and Chicago and New York and Florida and go to some of these sites where people may not be willing to come up for a tour. We'll come to you. I won't come to your house. We'll come somewhere like here though and set up shop and people can come and learn about Notre Dame. But we try to start out small, ask for something little, and then you can ask for a little bit more later and then build up from there. We do have the ability, we don't even actually allow you to apply in the app because we use common applications, so you have to jump out to common app to apply. The most we can get from you in the admissions module is a form that's actually an iframe from Slate, which is our admissions CRM. That's the most you can do in our app is fill out a form saying, I want a little more information. And we use campus events as a way to demonstrate the value of the app. Value of the app and the value of the institution. We wanted to show that there's a high value in attending Notre Dame. And in turn, we place a high value on the students by investing in resources like the app to help them be successful. So we try to show that in both ways so they can feel like coming to Notre Dame is a great decision both from the parents' perspective and from the students' perspective. And then we use Publisher to control the telling of the story. Publisher is, and actually if you look at that layout in that screenshot, we just basically took that from Barnard College. And they had a really good layout for admissions, and so we just borrowed very heavily from that. But like I said, you don't have to replicate the website. You can have a nice controlled flow. So we have visit, learn, visit, explore. Those 3 things, that's basically it. And so we're not saying, here's the 17 things you can do for admissions. There's 3 things, and we sort of guide you down this path of of learning about the university and how you apply, and publishers, great for that. And that's all I have. Thank you very much.